Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to Let's Play Darksiders 2. We begin today with finding some appropriate names for some of our possessed weapons, the Life Hunt Scythe and the newly dubbed Highwind Pike. I wanted to name that the Highwind Legacy, but it was just one character too long, so I had to settle on the Pike. The Life Hunt Scythe name was suggested appropriately by Andrew M. And Maduo S submitted a lot of different Final Fantasy IV themed names for the possessed glaive. You know what? Actually, I could have gone with Kane's Legacy. No, I like the Highwind stuff better. Because, well, Kane was a main party member in 4. The Highwind name is kind of become a recurring thing throughout Final Fantasy. Yeah, I like that better. Did my statue just disappear? Oh, hell yeah, it did. I don't know why. Maybe it was a little bit too close to the switch, and the switch, like, clipped through it and caused it to just cancel? Either way, this, we set the statue up where we did, because this puzzle mainly relies on pushing the boundaries of how far away you can go from the statue with one of your soul forms. And if you set that up in the middle, it will be way too far away for this Teal Death to reach his goal. Which is a pressure plate up here and a ball. So we're going to maneuver the ball near the pressure plate so that we can just push it away while we're stepping on it. Just line this up so I don't have to do this twice. That was a little glitchier than it should have looked, but you get the idea. Roll the ball down the pipe. It lands in its groove, and that will unlock the door in the middle of the room. There's another really nifty, like, room-spanning soul splitter puzzle in here that we have to solve in order to get a key to unlock the room back in the beginning. This is an optional side area we could have from the dungeon we were in when we dealt with the Mad Smith. We could have just gone in and finished the DLC right there after we got the Mad Smith's device for getting the 7 pieces of Chaos Ore. And he forged the item that allowed us to cross the Poison Swamp. We could have just finished off, gone straight to the final boss, but might as well get this optional side area out of the way. This only unlocks once we have that Mad Smith's device, again, because we had to cross the Poison Swamp to get here. And the reward for doing this side content is actually reasonable. It's not just another collectible, it's actually an entire skill point. Now, I think in the base game it was a pretty shitty legendary. Whoops. This I find kind of clever, because you need one of the soul forms sitting on the lever to make that one grapple point available. But while he's sitting on the lever, the grapple point to the left disappears. So you have to get the Purple Death across to the right first, and then send this one across so he relieves the pressure on the lever, so this hookshot point over here comes back. Plus, I love the scope and the scale of this puzzle. It's not terribly complex. It's a little bit more complicated just because of the scope than a lot of the Soul Splitter puzzles have been thus far. No, I can't come around that way. What I'm trying to do is get Purple Death onto the bridge over here before we go any further. This is the bridge that the ball landed on. Now, with the Teal Death that we brought to the opposite side of the room, there's a lever we can pull, which will rotate the bridge, and this gets us to a point where we can roll the ball into a groove to lower the gate so we can go and grab that chest, which has the dungeon key in it. So yeah, they put some actual work into this side area, and that's much appreciated, especially with how insubstantial the DLC would be otherwise. because you really could finish the DLC in probably 35 minutes or so without this side area. And we're going to drop into the pipe, because once you finish everything off, this chest appears in here with, whoa, a sight that did not want to be picked up. It does have ice damage on it, which is going to be important, because the next time I get a set of possessed scythes, I'm going to feed that to it, and that will probably transfer the ice property to it. That's an aspect of the possessed weapons I don't know if I've adequately explained, but the possessed items tend to inherit traits from the things that you feed to them. But not everything. It's normally the first few things. They can't have too many different attributes. So if, say, the first time you level it up, ice is highlighted on one of the things you're feeding to it, it can inherit the ice property. And ice differs from frost damage in that frost is a status ailment, will do its normal elemental damage, and it will cause enemies to become slowed down a little bit, I think. Ooh, that was a nice crit from midair. But frost is an entire, ice is an entirely different beast. Ice will freeze enemies outright into a block of ice. It's incredible. Also, this is our level 20 ability that we picked up on the harvester side of the tree. It's just a nice little AoE, good crowd control spell. It is very wrath expensive. Ooh. Man, the thing that I love about that charged glaive hit in midair is when you poke someone directly beneath you with it, it pops them back up into the air. So you can send them back to the ground, continue the air combo with it. Oh, there's so many things you can do with it. Oh, and it's these designs of the constructs again. Well, a mix of them. The Forge Guards and the ones that look like Bastion. Like, you'll notice you're seeing the blue numbers pop up. That's the frost damage from the scythe that I'm currently using. But it's not having a tangible effect on them. Like, you're not noticing a big status ailment come over them. I pushed them too far away for that pike hit. When we eventually get an ice-possessed weapon, they'll just glob into big hunks of ice, completely immobilized, and it's awesome. It is the best status effect that you can have as a player. It's quite nasty when other enemies use it against you, and there is one point in the game where that becomes a problem. And it's actually going to be in the next DLC that a lot of enemies gain the ice status ailment. There are actually quite a few status ailment gimmicks in the DLCs. Like, this one is all about fire. Enemies can burn you for a really nasty damage over time. And in Argul's Tomb, the ice status effect becomes a big threat. And it does the same thing to you as you do to enemies with it. Just freezes you solid and you have to mash out of it. That's the side area done, though. We got our skill point, which is nice. I think there are definitely collectibles in there, and there might even be a legendary I missed, but at this point, I kind of don't care. Most of the legendaries in the game, especially after the early and mid games, once you probably have a decently spec'd out possessed weapon, they're pretty worthless. Like, they have gimmicky special effects, but nothing to write home about. Every now and then you'll get something really nice. Like, I still think the Masher of Karkanos is incredible in the early and mid game, but there's just not many like it. Plus, like, I'm very over Darksiders 2's love for collectibles. Aside from the nomads, because there are very few of them, and they're more fun secrets than they are just tedious, collect 100 of these things. They're just like, obscured behind a leaf on a tree or something, where you would not normally think to look. Or, you know, things that are not super fun. Those collectibles exist because they tap into your lizard brain. And, like, the long-term goal of getting all of them sets this powerful sense of delayed gratification, while the individual collectibles are scattered around like little breadcrumbs to just give you that extra little bit of immediate gratification to keep you going towards that long-term goal. It's a very carrot and stick philosophy in game design, but it works because, hey, we find it satisfying or compelling, if you would. More compulsion than anything. Like, it's a simple tool to create a compelling thread. It's the same kind of Skinner box principle you find in watching the numbers go up in RPGs, like on the XP bar. And that's why RPG elements have kind of infiltrated everything.
Interference is unacceptable. Matt Smith did not lie. His creation lives. Why build so many constructs?
It is my function. My progeny shall construct Abyssal Forges upon other worlds. A new race that shall inherit all of creation.
I will not allow that.
You are not like the Makers. You are neither angel nor demon. What is your function?
I'm the Magneto function. The Abyssal Forge, you may have thought was going to refer to an entire dungeon. Instead, it's referring to a really radical-looking construct. A self-replicating construct whose entire purpose is to create other constructs. This fight's alright. Plus, this boss has one of my favorite visual designs of all of the Darksiders 2 bosses, including the ones from the base game. The Archon's probably number 1 with a bullet for me. But this one, it's either number 2 or number 3. Honestly, I find all of the DLC bosses to be pretty strong in that regard. The detail that I especially like about him, I love the design of his clawed hands, and I love those pistons on his shoulders and the small of his back. The fight itself is probably a little bit long in the tooth, I would say. But for what it is, it's kind of hectic and fun. So we spend the majority of the fight kind of dodging around, avoiding the exploding scarabs that try to track you down. Ah, man, that's a waste of a phase, because the teleport slash did not go where I expected it to. So we're dodging the homing fireball, the exploding scarabs, the ground shockwaves, all of this stuff going on. There are little molten eruptions under the grates in the floor, which actually do affect you. They slow you down as you walk through them, I believe. Which just makes avoiding the other stuff a little bit more difficult. And then you're waiting for this opportunity. Can't believe I actually got over that with that flip. For him to expose his head a little bit. So you can do a little bit of damage to the health bar, and then hook shot out the core. Very like Ocarina of Time style, the Water Temple boss. So you can just go ham on it. And that's where you get most of your damage from. Though you don't do an insignificant amount to his face. I think this will work a lot better. I was trying to like Z-target them before, but the Z-target was prioritizing the Abyssal Forge. Yeah, I think free aiming tends to lock on them a little bit better. And everything that hits you in this boss fight will inflict the burning status ailment. So if you get hit, you're not just getting staggered and knocked back like this. opening you up to even more damage. You're also getting set on fire for a lot of damage over time. This should... No, not quite. Oh, good, that last hit, as he swayed back and forth, was just enough. Try and make this count. And sometimes he will do 2 different shockwaves when he slams both fists down like that. So yeah, it's a nice boss fight to cap things off here. This is not a terribly meaty DLC. None of the ones in Darksiders 2 are. And you do get dropped in here kind of unceremoniously with no setup. But the content of itself, what it is here... there's a double shockwave. It's fun. Like, it's actually quite decent. I would say the Abyssal Forge is probably the best DLC. The one that we do next is the second best, though it's a little bit boring. The third one... Ooh, fuck. It's pretty disappointing. But we'll have time for that much, much later. I jumped too early. Landed in time to jump again, though. I wish there was like some use for Soul Splitter in this fight. That's the only thing. I guess I could set the Soul Splitter statue up by the middle of the platform, and then just cancel Soul Splitter to get back to where he lowers his face a little bit quicker. It's just an efficiency thing, though. It's not a necessary part of the boss gimmick. And those molten eruptions from the floor become more prevalent over time. This should be the last phase that we get, unless some bullshit happens. Oh, there we go. Hey, and we did it. That's a fun fight. I like that. And they graciously give you a way to exit the dungeon, or not really exit, but just teleport you back to the Mad Smith, so that you don't have to make a several-minute trek back through the swamp, this almost featureless swamp. There is one small side area with a very tiny puzzle to get some meaningless bullshit in the middle of that swamp.
Yes. And now, will you end me as well? Your broken mind is punishment enough, Smith. Don't make me regret my mercy.
Time to make a new masterpiece.
And this is literally the end of the DLC. There's no, like, pomp and fanfare to it. You just get a legendary for beating the Abyssal Forge and a little conversation with the Mad Smith. And some XP. And we're free to exit now. So let's save first. And where are we at? We're at about... we're a little over 15 minutes. So, we are also going to be starting the second DLC, the one that just unlocked after we completed all of Lost Light, which was Argul's Tomb. Argul is a name that should sound familiar. He was an assassination target for Thane's Quest back in the day. There is that as part of the base game side quest, and then there's also his tomb, which is the DLC. His tomb is set in the Land of the Dead's tile set, except it's all iced over, which gives a refreshing and very easy on the eyes appearance. And critically, it doesn't immediately conjure up how long the Kingdom of the Dead was, so it's
Why have you called me
fine.
ago?
You trade words like I trade coin, Ryder. You give little and you take much.
How's this for a bargain? For a moment of your time, I'll give you a tale and an opportunity. I'm listening. Before the Lord of Bones sat upon the eternal throne, there was another, more ancient king of the dead. His name was Argul. Argul the Mad. His reign lasted for eons, until he was betrayed.
By the Lord of Bones?
Yes. No. This tale is no great secret, but for one detail lost to the ages. The location of Argul's tomb. The Lord of Bones cast the tomb out of the underworld, so Argul would not be able to draw upon its power. Since then, knowledge of the tomb and its location have faded into the mists of time. None but Ostagoth remembers.
What became of Argul?
The Lord of Bones could have easily slain his predecessor. Instead, he entombed Argul beneath the dead plains. Now, did the Lord of Bones intend this as mercy or cruelty? Who can guess the motives of the dead? Except yourself, perhaps.
What else can you tell me about Argul?
Well, he was considered utterly insane. Argul would rant about the end of the world, a coming darkness that would spread through realms of life and death.
Corruption.
No. He spoke of the Riders. We must seize this opportunity to find the source of Argul's power, and, if possible, destroy it.
What do you gain from all this, trader?
That is not your concern. Instead, know this. In return for annihilating the source of Argul's strength, I can offer you a great reward.
So it's not Argul himself that we're going after, it is his tomb. The tomb of the deposed king, the man himself who preceded the Lord of Bones. And I love the palette of this place. We only got the snow-capped stuff in the very beginning in the tutorial section. So to see it come back for this DLC is refreshing. And right off the bat, we have another third-person shooter section. I am not going to complain about this nearly as much as I complained about Earth in Lost Light. For a lot of reasons, this is so much better than Earth's. One, the environment is much, much nicer. Argul gives us this nice ice palette that I've complimented a bunch of times. There's some semblance of a setup going into Argul's tomb. There's some narrative context between the fact that we already know about Argul and the history with the Lord of Bones and him being the deposed king and all. We have some narrative context, and we have the stuff with Ostagoth in the beginning. Whereas we didn't really get anything before we met the Mad Smith. We only got a passing reference to the Mad Smith in some item description or something. But he was not like a major player. There was not set up for that DLC. That and the darts are a lot more fun to use. They aren't as functional in the Earth third-person shooter segment, which is why I didn't use the dart gun, the Nerf darts. But here, like, the enemies, they're chunkier, they're slower, they don't maneuver behind you as much, so it's just more fun to blow them apart with the darts. The darts are also massive overkill against the zombies, whereas here it actually does take a few darts to take some of these enemies out. But they're just chunky, and it's fun to blow them up with these darts. So that's immediately more fun. It's more satisfying. This section also doesn't feature an infinite stream of enemies beckoned by regular intervals of a gong. There are fixed numbers of enemies here, which helps tremendously. You don't feel like you're under constant pressure to move forward because, god damn it, I have to fight more of these stupid, weak, annoying zombies. And the most important thing is, I don't think this section overstays its welcome. Like, remember in Earth, what I was saying, if this was 1/3 of the dungeon, one wing of it, it would probably be fine to have something like this. That's exactly what they do here. This is one section of the dungeon out of... You could probably divide this into 3 sections, to be honest. There's this, there's one tiny dungeon coming up, and then there's the main spire. This is only 1/3 of that. So it's both more fun and more succinct. It's a massive improvement over the stuff from Earth, and I have to imagine that this was inspired by some criticism people had of Earth. Or at least I would hope. Also, you can clearly see how much these are just straight up Nerf darts. They're big orange, thick Nerf darts. And that's not to say that this section itself doesn't drag on a little bit too long. A lot of things in Darksiders 2 can be accused of that. But it's not the entire DLC, which is critical. And I just overall think it's pretty fun. Like, it provides that catharsis that I think they expected the shooter section from Earth to provide. Where, as in reality, that's just kind of tedious. Oh, hello. One of them actually did get behind me. And yet they still, like, even though this section's much, much easier, they still do drop health potions like candy. Like icy health potion pinatas. And I've managed to go and turn myself around. Which is kind of amazing given that, just like back on Earth, this is pretty much a straight line.
It's time you find something.
I have an amazing sense of direction. It's Zorro-esque. Most of the time, the dudes entombed in ice will not pop out as you cross their paths. Instead, it's only when you blow up an enemy near them that they will break free of their ice prisons. So you can even minimize the amount that you actually have to fight just by being careful. Or you can just blow everything to hell. Either way, it's all good. But man, this is such a more satisfying weapon than the Gatling gun. And we don't have too much more to go. You see the big open arena, and that's kind of the signal that this is the end of the section with a big gauntlet or a big boss fight. I'm like 99% certain that that's the exact cutscene from the beginning of the game when this enemy is introduced to you in the tutorial. That is the same enemy, right? The ice giant? I'm not crazy, am I? Either way, we start off with one of these, flanked by tons of enemies. And for the first time, they aren't just straight ahead of us in a big narrow line. So we do have to be somewhat careful, because we're surrounded on all sides in an enclosed arena. Which is a fun little change of pace. And once we dispense with the first ice giant, there are 2 of them now. which makes them all the more dangerous. But you still do have access to the dodge. And they only have those 2-hit combos, so it's not like you can ever get screwed unless you're just not being careful. And here's where I think it's a little bit excessive. When they throw Ice Giants number 4 and 5 at you after you've already dealt with the first 3. I think that's a little bit much. Not from like a difficulty standpoint, because this is still not that hard. But just from like, okay, I'm over it. I'm ready to move on now. Y'all made your point. You made sure I could handle multiple enemies and multiple Ice Giants. Move on. But since they don't have that much HP, I still think it's okay. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And that is the Strange Cave taken care of. This is also a side area, by the way. I don't think there's any need to come through here. But again, this DLC is not long. This is, I think, the shortest of the 3. Even with that. It's between this and the 3rd DLC, which is the Demon Lord Belial. But we, again, get a skill point for doing that, so it's worth it. Plus, if we're trying to extract every last drop of value, as nebulous as that concept is, yeah, we should probably do that side stuff. So we're gonna need a key to open this big cool door up. That key comes right across the way from this other dungeon. So again, we had the side cave. We have the spire behind us, and then the other dungeon to look forward to.
You know where to find me.
Yeah, you're gonna just hang out there, Ostagoth. Chill, my dude. It's been a bit since we've seen those cool Kingdom of the Dead doors. So Frostbone Crypt is another Kingdom of the Dead dungeon, except with this ice theme, an ice palette, and Voidwalker puzzles this time around. So we have access to the Voidwalker, to the gun, and to the Death Grip. What we do not have here is Soul Splitter, which is kind of odd, but not entirely unwelcome. I mean, at the very least, they give us this DLC after we've unlocked the Voidwalker in Lost Light. So it's sensible. We got our tutorial, same as giving us the Abyssal Forge right after the area where we get Soul Splitter. So it all makes sense so far. The point at which the Demon Lord Belial unlocks and what we get access to in that is bizarre by comparison. Plus, the Voidwalker puzzles in Argul's tomb are pretty cool, and there are a lot of them. So I think we want a charged portal over there. I also don't remember these too well, so I'm going to refigure these out on the fly in a lot of cases. Oh, hold on. Okay, it looks like we're going to have to wrap up pretty soon, so we'll do one more puzzle. Oops. First, I have to shoot another portal over here, so it's facing directly towards that crystallized corruption. Then we throw a bomb through the portal, and that will blow the corruption up. And now we can just wall run over. Or not. Or we can just die. And a new route through the dungeon is opened up to us. And I think we're coming up to a significant hub, so it'll be a good place to leave off. No, we're coming up to a fight. So that's going to do it for now. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take it easy. Have a good one.